Okay, so I thought I would make some informative little Inkscape tutorial aimed at anybody interested in making, well, simple, symmetrical, nice looking figures and diagrams for, say, physics or mathematics or anything like that. So, for instance, well, let's try to make something like what I have here. So I'm basically going to just try to say make some of these and just show you how that's done. Let's open up a new one, and what you're first going to want to do is turn on the grid. To turn on the grid, there's a nice shortcut, shift hashtag or whatever it's called, or you can open it manually by going into another menu which is very useful. This menu over here. You open this by clicking Shift Control D, but it's basically document properties, and I'm sure you can look for it somewhere here, but these are kind of horrible to navigate. So in here you can go to grids and you can turn it on and off. You can also scale the size of the grid, how it jumps and so on. One thing to note is that how the grid looks is not the full story. If you zoom in, you can see that the resolution changes a bit. But this will show you what it's going to snap to, and that's what you want the grid for. You want the grid for snapping. Snapping is great because it helps you basically make straight lines. So what tool am I using now? I'm using the pen tool, and I accessed it by just pressing P, I guess. And I drew these lines. That's what we want, but they're looking a bit too thick at the moment, so let me select them both. I just hold Control Shift and then I click on the second one, and I go into a menu for fill and stroke. To get to this menu, click Shift Control F, and then you're going to want to go to stroke style, and here you can see the width of the stroke, and I'm going to set it to 0.2 and hit enter. Now it looks much better. Alright, now that that's done, maybe we would like to combine these two into one unit. To do that, you can just group them by pressing Ctrl G. That creates a group. Groups are nice because you can access the individual elements separately as well by just double clicking a couple of times. But if you click out of that, you can drag it around as if it's just one thing. It's great. And you can also do all kinds of transformations on it, like so Control Shift M is a hotkey to get into transformations. You can rotate them, let's say by 30 degrees, press apply and it will do that, and so on. So it's nice. A little bit more of a hardcore way to combine them into one object, which is an irreversible thing, mind you, is to combine them using Control Plus. Now you see, now I tried to combine them using Control Plus and they just disappeared. That's because these are a little bit special. They're kind of very infinitely thin paths with a stroke on them. But what you want to do then is you want to make them into proper paths, and you can do that by just pressing stroke to path up here. We're going to do that on both object, path, stroke to path. And you can check that it did it by double clicking a couple of times, and you should see these guys appearing at the corners. What would happen if you double clicked on just the original guy is that you would just see the endpoints. Alright then, so now that these are these kind of proper paths, select them both and press Control Plus, and that combines them, and now they're truly one object, and it's irreversible, and you can see some of the nice features of having done that is you can stretch and manipulate and do all kinds of crazy things with these nodes. But that's not really what we want. Let's make the vertex kind of things that we wanted. So, well, I would just add something on top here, like this. You saw I continued this line by pressing on the edge and waiting for this thing to become red. It's kind of hard to see because they're small, but trust me, it becomes red. Let's make that into a proper path again. Control-Alt-C is the shortcut for that. Check that it is one. Yep. And let's change its color. So we can go into fill, change the fill a bit, just play around with these sliders. Let's say we want that color. Great. Then that's done. Unfortunately, you cannot merge things with different color. So if I wanted, say, these things to merge into one, Control plus, well, they're going to choose the color of, well, one of them. I don't know how the order is, but you get the idea. So instead, in this one, I will just make it into a group. And then I can copy and paste it like you would in any other program. And we can place it, let's see, snap it onto the grid. Now you see what's happening is it's not really wanting to snap for me nicely. So I need to go to the edge where the bounding box is, turn on the bounding box, snap. No, that's not working for me either. So what I really should be doing is I should be having the snap pathing turned on, but I want to make sure that the snap midpoints of line segments is turned on. Turn on that and you can see, boom, it snaps that perfectly. And I can flip this and so on. Some nice hotkeys for doing that is V, vertical flip, H, horizontal flip. And you can imagine just extending this, well, generalizing this to any kind of vertex you would want to create. You can make a horizontal line segment and so on. The nice thing is we can now go into this group, we can select this part, and we can move it about and do a completely new kind of vertex. Let's make a horizontal one. So begin here, stop here, make it into a proper path, and let's change its color to be exactly what the other one is. Then you can use this one, pick a color, click, boom, it's that color. And we're done. Well, let's make it into a group first. There you go. Now this one flipping horizontally and vertically doesn't do anything. So what if we wanted to rotate it by 90 degrees? One thing you can note is that when you click on this, sorry, let's go out. Now I've got the group selected. If I click on it once more, so at the moment you see these are scaling operations that I can do. If I do it, click once more, I get rotating operations. And I can just drag this. And now it will snap to the grid, but you can also hold Control and it will just rotate it in discrete amounts. But yeah. Those are some things that you can do in Inkscape. There's a lot of other things you can do, but I think this basically covered the basics. Just play around with these snapping tools over here, and basically the only tools you'll need here are this one, this one, this one, and I guess if you want to make squares you can do that. You see they have this ugly outline to begin with, but you can turn that off. It's basically the stroke, so if you set the stroke off, boom, no paint on the stroke, then you get a perfect square. And this is going to be a weird kind of square type object, which has a lot of different sliders and manipulators. But again, you can turn this into a path. I think then you need to go object to path, and you click that, and now you can see it's a proper path. Alright, so but I guess that's all I wanted to do. But yeah, maybe a very important thing to keep in mind, in addition to this, the ability of the snapping and the grid here, is that you want to always make things as often as possible, make things into proper paths. So always use these object to path and stroke to path. They're really important because things don't really work as nicely when they are, well, just not proper paths, when there's some weird objects. Now that these are proper paths, I can do really cool things like, let's say I want this object to eat a chunk out of this one. I put it over, I select them both, and I press Control minus, and boom, it's eaten something out of there. I mean, the number of things you can do with this is amazing. Alright, I think that's all for now. Hope it was helpful and somewhat understandable.